let's get into full spoilers for WandaVision episode 4. This is going to be the bulk of our show because there is just so much shit to talk about. Like, I have an entire Google Doc just of notes. So when the episode begins, it starts
I
off
love
with
it.
Monica Rambeau like coming back from being dusted. At first I was like, is this some kind of like, is she in like a dream sequence? Because the last time we saw her, she was thrown out of the alternate reality, and I thought she was just unconscious. But then you get inside the rest of the hospital, it's like, holy shit, this is everyone coming back
From the blip.
from the blip.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my god. Chris, give me some of your favorite moments from episode 4.
Well, the opening, as you mentioned, is magnificent. When it comes to how like the average Joe dealt with the blip, we've only gotten glimpses of that in Spider-Man: Far From Home, and they kind of played it off as a joke. But in reality, like living through this would be an extremely harrowing experience. And I think that how they shot the cold open for this episode of WandaVision really illustrates like how scary it would be, especially for the people that got blipped out of existence, to wake up. As we can see from Monica, she thinks she's been asleep for like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's been 5 years, and so much has happened in that time span. Like, having to process all that information, as well as, you know, not everyone was blipped back together at once, as we see in this cold open. It's a gradual thing. So you're also seeing like people materialize in front of you. That's horrifying, right? Like, I never really liked the way Spider-Man: Far From Home handled it, because it really is like this devastating global event. But I really do think that they remedied it.
Lens of high school kids. You know
It
what I
was.
mean?
And truth be told, like from what we know now with episode 4, WandaVision episode 4, or the entire series as of right now, takes place like 3 weeks after the end of Endgame. Spider-Man: Far From Home takes place 8 months after the event of Endgame. So like people had some time to process it, I guess. But it was excellent.
I just want to add to what you're saying. The one thing I like about Endgame was when Captain America was with the council of people that left the blip. And I wish we got more of that, because that shows more of the human side of the world that we live in, of heroes. And that's something I wish we got more in a serious tone, because people lost their wife, their kids, their grandma, their uncles and aunts. So I wish we got that more conversation. Like James said, like it was kids in high school and it made us a joke, but this is real. People lost their lives, lost their family without having no real answers and all. And I'm happy that we got that for the first 5 minutes or 2 minutes. And her finding out that her mom passed like 3 years ago and she did not know, and knowing that she was like a worker of sword and everything, so fascinating to see that already progress. And each scene was so important because it gave so much information, so much Easter eggs, so much story of characters already showing that's gonna be coming up much later on. So it's amazing.
Yeah, I would watch a whole Disney Plus show just about people coping with that 5-year period. Like
I would.
Average people though, like no superpowers, just like how did the average Joe deal with this experience? It'd be so interesting.
Yeah, just like a mini series would be great. Yeah, but just like it's crazy for Monica to wake up to realize that her mom has been dead for 3 years while she was right by her bedside. Like, it's crazy. And to find out, I love that this episode told us how long that sword's been around. It's been around just as long as Shield, which is absolutely crazy to think of. And Maria Rambeau was one of the founders of Sword, which is crazy. So I
well,
love
it would have been founded in the 90s.
Right.
So like she would have founded it like after the Captain Marvel movie.
Yeah, because Shield because Shield is much earlier because of Peggy Carter. So it makes sense.
Right. But still, it's been around for a long time within the MCU, and that's a really fun detail in terms of world building.
Yeah, it's amazing. And then they pretty much tell you with that shot of the sword base where you see all of the space shuttles. It's like, yep, Sword started off exactly how we know it is from the comics, where they handle like the extraterrestrial stuff in space, like the cosmic entities of space. We're still going to get into that. I can't wait to see a Sword agent interact with the Eternals. That's going to be dope.
Yeah.
But they've realized that Earth needs their help too. Shield is gone, and they have to be the new symbol. And I love that. There was one thing that I wanted to bring up. Tyler Hayward, he's a Skrull. He is 100%
I was thinking that too.
a Skrull. I'm
If
calling
he's
it
not a
right now.
Skrull, he's definitely an asshole. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh hell yeah! The way he treated her, I'm like, but the scroll, that could be the way to start it, because that's how it started in the comics. That always the one in the leader position takes the scroll position. So I can see where you're coming from, James, in that. Maybe.
Also,
Yeah.
did you guys notice that nobody refers to him as director? He's still the acting director after like 3 years of Maria Rambeau being dead and Monica
Because-
Rambeau not coming back. So like for 3 years he's been like the false leader of Sword. That must grind on him. Nobody cares about him.
No, not at all.
But
So
it's
yeah, I mean, I think he could be a Skrull.
But it's just because she said it, like he was placed there. He was never given the position. It was more
Right.
that he was filling the spot. But now that she's back, technically that's her position, since her mom was the one that was in charge and she's the one that's next to one to take the lead. But now she got pushed to the side for a side mission, where I could agree with James. Maybe he said like, okay, I should push this girl away because she knows the in and outs. So maybe that's why James could be onto something.
Yeah. Another thing that we find out is that Westview is in New Jersey, and I love this scene where Monica meets Agent Wu.
Randall Park, yes.
I was so happy about that, because in episode 1 I was like, there's a bunch of Agent Wu references in here. Like this is crazy. And then we finally get to see him, and I love that interaction with the cops. It's like they're standing right next to the Westview sign, and to them, the entire community doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
I love it. It just shows the magnitude of Wanda's power, and I love that they're leaning more into her hex powers, right?
Yes.
We also get the return of Darcy, which I thought was awesome, by the way. And she brings up the fact that the energy bubble is giving off radiation that hasn't been seen since the Big Bang. As you guys know, the Infinity Stones were created when
Because
the
the
Big
Big Bang,
Bang
yep.
happened.
Right,
And
so
we
that makes
know that the
perfect sense.
Infinity Stone gave Wanda her powers. So it's all coming full circle. Like, there's so many deep cuts in this episode.
And plus, to add to what Ginger said, that Wanda's powers come from the Reality Stone. That's where her powers are originated, and that's what changes, because it's changing the reality of people's mind, the way they perceive things. Because those cops even said, "Oh, I come from Eastview." I'm like, there's literally Westview right there, and you guys do not see that whole big sign saying there's 3,000 people in that town.
That's
I'm
such a
like,
great moment where she's like looking over at the sign
Yeah,
and then
she's
looking
like-
back at them.
like
Yeah.
Eastview, really? Eastview, okay. So I guess you're from that side.
I
But-
do want to take a moment to backtrack a little bit
Oh, yeah.
to James. You mentioned when Jimmy Woo meets Monica Rambeau for the first time. I'm so glad that the close-up magic gag came back.
Yeah.
In
Oh.
Ant-Man and the Wasp, he's like astonished that Scott Lang can do close-up magic because he's been on house arrest for months and has like developed all these really wacky skills and hobbies. So it's a really funny callback to him like flicking out his business card to hand to her. Like it's so ridiculous. I literally laughed out loud.
Yeah.
My wife was like, "What's wrong with you?"
It's hilarious. I just love that Randall Park is both in the MCU and the DCEU. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I love him so much.
He
Like,
was in Aquaman.
yeah,
Oh wow, I forgot he was in Aquaman. Wow.
yeah. I hope he has like a really big part in this series. I hope that Sword like recruits him. Honestly,
That'd
but
be great.
someone
Zendo-
it was Brian. Someone brought up Brian brought up hexagons that was on a board. Like, what do you think that means? Do you think it was just like a simple nod to her hex powers? Like what do you think?
So I don't really know what the hexagons mean at this point in time, but I really do love that scene. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about this episode is how meta contextually this episode is. Because for the last 2 weeks, as fans, we have been dissecting everything in all these episodes, and it turns out that Sword is literally asking the same questions we've been asking for 2 weeks. What do the hexagons mean? Is Vision alive? Who is behind this? Skrulls? Like, it's so vindicating that literally the characters in the show outside the bubble are on the same exact page as all the fans who've been doing deep dives into this particular show.
And I want to add how Darcy is like us, the fans. Like she's also playing as a scientist, but also us, the fans, because she's watching as a TV show and she's
Right.
crying like, "Oh, they just had 2 boys." I'm like,
She's
that's
invested.
Like, yeah, like, and she said those words like, It's because Randall Park asking like, "Are you crying?" Like, well, I'm invested. Like, I just literally watched the 1950s, the 1960s, and then after she said we're in the 1970s. So I love how this episode literally connected the past three of what we saw and what she saw in her perspective from the whole radiation of what was going on in the TV show aspect.
James, to answer your original question though, with the hexagons.
That's a great.
One more time. I'm sorry, I broke up for a minute.
Yeah, because you froze, James.
Is he there?
Froze.
Oh,
All right,
no.
so while James froze, I was gonna say that Randall Park, he is in every episode from here on out. So I don't know if
Right.
that's spoilers for other people because I did check the IMDb as well for him, and he's in most episodes going on right now. So I'm can't wait to see how he's gonna be connected from here on forward and for the next future episodes.
I'm excited to see it too. His interactions with Darcy,
Oh, it's
or Kat
amazing.
Dennings, they have a fantastic dynamic. It's so funny. James, to answer your original question about the hexagons, yes, I definitely think it like the most basic level. I think it's referring to Wanda's hex powers or chaos magic, which we really haven't seen a whole lot of in the MCU so far. I think there's a deeper meaning to the hexagons than just that, but I'm not quite sure what it is yet. In this episode, at the very end of the episode, we hear Monica Rambeau say, like, it's Wanda, like it's all Wanda. She's accusing Wanda of being like the mastermind behind everything that's taking place in Westview. But I'm not fully convinced
Same here.
that that's
Yep.
actually the case. So we'll
Yeah.
see. I think the hexagons have a deeper meaning, though. Maybe
Yeah, I can't.
something satanic. We'll see.
Maybe.
That's what I was going to lead into because if you have seen Doctor Strange when he does the magic circles in the comics or in the cartoons or in the movies, there are always hexagon type of form with circles as well. So if you guys can know, Doctor Strange and Wanda's type of villains and what's happening with Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, this could be connected with how Doctor Strange might come in the end of the season or something. Who knows? But it's possible where the hexagon could be connected to the villains like Dormammu or other characters that we might see, where they could be connected with Wanda.
Yeah, there's so much that there's so many Easter eggs that you can lay into other things that's gonna happen in the future of the MCU. Like, it's absolutely crazy. Like, but something that I wanted to talk about was Vash, how you brought up that this episode pretty much just showed Sword's perspective of what was happening over the past 3 episodes. So let's talk about that, right? We know for a fact now that it was Darcy sitting there watching the screen at the end of episode 1.
I was right
Yeah.
from
with
2 weeks
the
ago.
notebook. That was dope. I did not expect that at all. When we see the beekeeper coming out of the manhole, it was just a sword agent, and when he went through the barrier, it changed him to fit the time period, which just shows like how amazing
And
Wanda's hex
detailed.
powers are and how detailed they are, that her powers automatically changes everything in the space to fit that time period. I also love that one of the sword drones just turned into a helicopter toy from that time. Like, I just love all of the little scenes where Wanda just starts to break away from her reality. And let's talk about how amazing Elizabeth Olsen's acting has been in
She's
these
been
last
great.
episodes. Oh my god, when we see the other perspective of when she throws Monica out of the reality,
Yes.
the acting, like just her facial expressions, it was amazing.
Going from like manic, happy-go-lucky 1950s and 60s housewife to vengeful Sokovian Scarlet Witch. There's so much in between
Range.
those two characters. It's incredible range, and I really appreciate that Wanda and Vision are finally getting some focus here, because we've seen so little of them in the films in the MCU, and they're such interesting characters, and there's so much you can explore with the two of them. They have a really fraught relationship in the comic books, and the show is fantastic.
So, from what the chat said, for those that like Wanda right now, you guys should read the comic of House of M, because if you like this version of Wanda, that's how she is in the comics, the actual Wanda version that we wanted to see in the MCU, and we're getting her now. And this episode confirmed me and James' thought / theory from last week, if what she makes, if what she changes comes to real. For example, we saw the bookkeeper, the whole changing outfit. We saw the character being thrown down and still wearing the same clothes. So if she has the same clothes, that means those babies, those twins, are real, and that
Real,
means that
bro.
that means those.
Or at least she can make them real.
Yes,
Yeah.
that she can make them real, even though I don't know how she kept the other organism of Vision, but that's a whole different question. But now the question is that is she gonna bring Vision back to life, or is somebody else gonna help her to bring him back to life? Now that's the question.
I think it's going to be Wanda and Shuri, because I feel like it would be wasted to not talk about the fact that Shuri was trying to literally remap and rebuild Vision's brain. I feel like, I mean, because Wanda could just bring him back, but I feel like it would be wasted to show that in Infinity War and then just not use it at all. So I feel like there'll be some type of combination between those two. Chris, what do you think?
Possibly. From just going off of what we've seen in the show, and Vash brings up a really good point in that her constructs in Westview, when they leave the barrier, are still manifest.
Yep.
Right? So, for instance, when the beekeeper's tether turns into a jump rope and Sword pulls it out of the sewage system, a portion of the tether is still a jump rope. We know that when Monica Rambeau got ejected from Westview, she was still wearing her 1970s outfit. So, like, whatever's taking place in here could potentially come to life outside of the barrier, as we just talked about, whether it's her two children or Vision, in terms of Vision. We get a really interesting scene with Vision at the end of the episode. I don't know if you want to dive into it right now, but as we know, Vision was killed at the end of Infinity War. What happens if a Wanda-powered Vision exits the barrier of Westview? Does he stay alive, or does he power down and crumple to the ground? Those are things we don't know. You know, based on the logic that we've seen thus far with how her magic works, I would say that's a possibility. If he were to leave the barrier while still powered, maybe that's a way for him to be brought back to life. And in terms of like him being powered by the Mind Stone, her powers are derived from the Mind Stone. So who's to say that she can't keep him alive on her own without an Infinity Stone? So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Those are just some of the things that I think could potentially happen. But
yeah, that's crazy.
We'll
There's so many possibilities, dude. There's so many possibilities, and we can talk about the end of the episode. What happens? We pretty much get like a zombie.
Oh, it's
vision.
horrifying.
Like I was actually stunned by looking. I'm like, oh my god, like how his eyes were like so white and like dead. You know what I mean? So I mean, like that's how he actually looks all the time. You know what I mean? And Wanda is just creating this facade of how Vision normally looks, but I can't get that image out of my head now. So every time I see Vision, I'm just going to see this pale dead corpse.
Yeah.
That is animated to walk around.
A living cadaver.
And it was terrifying for her because her reaction, it brings her PTSD to see the love that she lost and that she's trying to build him back, like trying to do a little nice bit of workshop instead of build an android, a nice little happy one, that husband that never got to be, that we never saw. So to actually see that her bring him like, no worries, honey, and she left. But then Vision looks like he's starting to understand what's really going on, but he doesn't want to ask too many questions because it shows that he's scared of Wanda because he has a feeling that this is being caused by Wanda. So he's like, okay, I'm going to just hug my wife and just look all smiling.
He's definitely suspicious.
Yes.
After the episode ended, I was actually talking to my wife about what we thought was going on with Vision, because I think you can read that scene two different ways. I tend to read it the way that you guys read it, which is she is powering a Vision cadaver, and it's just walking around Westview. But I think you can also read it in a way that she was just experiencing like a flash of her trauma. Like maybe she was just remembering what Vision looked like prior to creating this reality. So it's possible that that's the case. The former is absolutely horrifying to think that she has been basically just powering a Vision corpse. Everything we've seen in the first 3 episodes is just Vision's dead body walking around Westview, and she's acting as if nothing is wrong. It's
But
gross.
then does the people of Westview know that that's a Walking Dead Vision, or they just see what Wanda wants them to see?
That's my question, dude, because there's some people that obviously know that something's not right, but they also can't fight it too hard either. So it's like, where is the line drawn? Obviously, Wanda using this much power
Drains her.
it's why I think some people are able to slip through the
Yeah.
illusion sometimes. Because the doctor, he was like, "Yeah, we're not leaving to go on vacation." Like, I can't remember the exact line that he says, but it's like he's aware of what's actually
He says something like,
We can't escape.
small towns, they're so difficult to escape," or something
Yeah,
like
something
that.
like
something. But also, to bring back something about Darcy as well, she said that somebody is cutting the footage of what Wanda does. So, do you think it's Wanda herself that's cutting the footage that of what cannot be seen, or do you think that somebody else is doing it behind the scenes that we don't know yet?
I think it's Wanda. Every time something happens that she doesn't like that could potentially break her new reality, she
Yeah.
just erases it and starts over. So it's definitely Wanda, in my opinion.
I did like seeing the juxtaposition between the two perspectives, though, because we've been living inside Westview for these last 3 episodes. So we've only seen what's transpiring through Wanda and Vision's eyes, but seeing it from Darcy and the Sword Agent's perspective, where like when she cut Dottie's hand, they didn't get to see that. It
Yeah.
just kind of cut to the scene directly after that. And that's so interesting. Like you said, Vash, she's trying to hide all these negative pieces about the illusion from the outside world. But like, I don't know. There are things that I've been thinking about, like, why is she even broadcasting it? You know, what's the point of that? If she's gonna hide specific things from people,
Maybe
is she not doing it on purpose? It's what's the logic behind it? That's
it's
what
a
I
cry
still
for
haven't
help.
figured out.
It's actually a cry for help because she's a person
Maybe.
who lost her beloved. Like for those that lost a grandfather, an uncle, a friend, or something. Like sometimes you be in a dark place and you want to cry for help, but you're afraid to ask. So maybe like this is her way of like, hopefully somebody finds this type of broadcast and maybe somebody could save her, but also help her to bring
Yeah.
back Vision, like in that weird type of psychological way to bring Wanda back to reality.
Like a subconscious cry for help,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah,
Possibly.
I don't know, man. There's a lot to unpack with WandaVision, and I did not expect so many deep cuts. I did not expect this show to be this good, man, and it just hypes me up for Falcon and Winter Soldier even more, because it's like now that I know we're getting Zemo and a bunch of other different things, it's like this is going to go really in depth into the Captain America lore, what it means to take on the symbol of Captain America without actually being Captain America and trying to replace him. Like, I can't wait to see all of that stuff. There was some really cool Easter eggs in this episode. So Monica was in room 104, which I think is an Easter egg to Avengers Comics 104, where Trask takes Wanda and tries to use her hex powers to create a solar flare to eliminate mutants. And Vision and the Avengers had to come and help her. So I thought that was a really, really dope little Easter egg there. The director's office is room 101, which is another Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver story, which I thought was really, really cool.
Dude, anytime you see a number in the
It's
MCU, it's
It always
reference
means
to a
something.
specific issue.
Yeah. As soon as I saw 104, I was like, all right, I need to Google Avengers 104 and see what I remember. I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. That happened.
It is always important, like back then when it's like Guardian of the Galaxy and when they say number 2738, you know it means something. Some type of Easter egg for Guardians or Easter egg for the whole characters that we know of, or when it was released. Like those things are very important, and I love how small things they care about for us as fans.
I agree.
Yeah, I am so excited for what's to come in WandaVision. I hope they get a season 2. If not, I'll be okay, because it does continue into Spider-Man 3 and Doctor Strange. So I
Yeah.
would be okay, but I just need more of this, man. Like, this show is just so good.
What's great about the MCU, though, is that there doesn't necessarily need to be a season 2. because all the characters are connected. So they could literally just create these mini series on Disney Plus. They don't have to be season 2s. They could just be their own separate things, you know?
Yeah. So Brian brings up a good question. Like, I didn't get a chance to research this, and I don't know, but the characters that were on the bulletin board, like, I don't know if they're comic book characters.
They're not.
know. Okay.
Same here.
Yeah,
So
they're just citizens of Westview.
Okay. I didn't know
There's
if
no
any of them
reference
had
to
any
comic books.
type of significance to the comics in any way.
But
But
speaking of that bulletin board, I
Give me-
really love what they're doing. How they're like grabbing the driver's license for every character in the sitcom that they're identifying. If you look closely at the bulletin board, Agnes does not have a driver's license. So I still suspect that she is maybe not literally Agatha Harkness, but a version of her adapted from the comic book. She has to be involved in this on a more sinister level somehow. I'm just calling it right now.
Yeah, definitely.
I was gonna ask you guys before we left this segment and everything. Do you have any theories for the next couple episodes or next week episode? Like, do you have any theories of what you think could happen? Wanda, where we're gonna go? Sword. What's the next? Because we next episode we're gonna see the 1980s. So do you have any type of theory of what's gonna be happening?
Outside of just experiencing the 1980s sitcom, I think we're going to gradually see Vision and Wanda come to a head in terms of what's transpiring in Westview. I think Vision at some point will have enough and confront her about it. So we might see a fight between the two of them. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, and he already has confronted her about this world and just how, like, the kids were created.
Yeah.
That's the other thing too. Like, why is this Vision questioning all of these things if it was created by Wanda? So there's just so much more to it that I want to understand. You know what I mean?
It could be, she loves him, obviously. So she might be a little more lenient in terms of, like, how much agency he actually has. Like, what's the point of being with somebody if you're 100% manipulating the person that they are? They have no unique personality to them. You want to be with somebody because they're interesting and different from you, and you two complement each other in some way. So if she took full control of Vision, I think she would lose a lot of the things that she loves about Vision.
Yeah,
that's just my take on
that's
it.
a good point.
I
Brian,
agree.
I swear, if Vision does a line of cocaine with his coworkers,
I was reading that, and I'm like, well, Wolf of Wall Street and those things that we have seen, and the 80s was known for the mafia and everything, and we might see that if it's the 80s, because that's what I thought the whole theme it was about.
It's still gonna be wholesome 80s sitcom, guys. I mean, I don't think we're gonna reach that level. Also, if Gum messes him up to that degree, then Coke would I don't even know.
Oh
what
my
would happen.
god, he will explode, the head will pop up, or she might have another type of seizure, seeing the whole forehead explosion type of.
oh man,
But I do agree with what Chris said. I think they will have their first fight, and I think they will have their first disagreement. I think Wanda will lose control a bit more. So I believe that will happen, because in all type of marriages, in all type of couples, there's a fight, and one way or another, it doesn't turn out good. And I think in this one, Wanda will learn that not everything is flowers and daisies. Like, things is not going to be happy for this next couple episodes.
Right.
yeah. My last question before we move on to main topic number 2 is, what do you think the growth rate of these kids are going to be? Like, she had an entire pregnancy in 24 hours. Like, how fast will these kids grow? Like, are we going to see, like, Wiccan and Speed, like, at
They're going to
the
be 10
end
years
of
old.
So, as of right now, Kevin Feige is definitely setting up Young Avengers.
Yep.
Like, absolutely. I predict that by the end of the series, we will have teenage versions of Billy and Tommy to become Wiccan and Speed for, like, a Young Avengers miniseries, or if you want to toss them in a movie. But if you look at, like, a lot of the Marvel properties currently in development, they have Young Avengers in each of those products.
Yeah.
So they're definitely moving in that direction. So I think they'll probably be teenagers by the time we get to the end of the show, which would be awesome.
My theory is that they're either 6 to 10 years old, because if we're going to jump from the 70s, where she gave birth in 24 hours, and then next episode's the 1980s. They either should be 10 years old, since 10 years later, or the minimum 6 years old. So my maximum 10, minimum 6. That's my guess of what their age could be. Because if they're going to jump from each 10 years, is most likely my guess.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
she's
a good
just
guess.
switching it up, but I don't know if the kids will age that way too. But I don't know, man. We will see.
Going back to our theory that anything she pulls from Westview like becomes corporeal and real in like the real world of the MCU, I wonder how that time dilation works. Like if they are teens by the end of the show and she somehow pulls them out of the barrier, does it revert to normal time passing, or does it continue with the same time that was inside the barrier?
I think it will.
I would guess that it's like the latter. That time would revert back to normal flow.
Yeah, I
But-
agree.
Yeah, because I mean, you want to keep them that age so that you can milk the Young Avengers. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah,
so I
because,
definitely think that's gonna happen. That's a great theory.
you don't want them to turn to Captain America within the next 24 hours. Like, just go from young to old within like a short time.
Right.
Like, I'm also looking forward to Captain Marvel too, because I really want to see Monica Rambeau meet up with Carol again, because she hasn't seen her since the events of Captain Marvel, right? Since
Yeah.
like the mid late 90s. So it'll be great to see her and like how they're gonna interact with each other. I would love to see how Monica is gonna get her powers, like because they have to give her powers.
Do you think the powers will manifest in WandaVision, or do you think she'll get them in Captain Marvel too?
I hope in Captain Marvel too.
Same.
I think WandaVision is a little too stacked to just throw that in
I agree.
at the end. I would love to see that in the movie though.
Well,
How? I don't know.
Yeah,
I have one
we'll
last
see.
question. Do you think we'll see Nick Fury involved in any way within the last couple of episodes? Because Nick Fury was involved with bringing Wanda to the States, bringing her to the Avengers, and he was involved in that. And since Nick Fury knows Wanda, maybe he could help her. Like, hey, Wanda, is me, Nick. What's going on here? I was in space. I had to come back to Earth. I don't like this dirt place no more. So, do you think he will come back in any type of capacity?
I don't think so. I think it's more likely that we see Doctor Strange at the end of this series than Nick Fury, only because, like you said, he is kind of still up in space with the Skrulls, and he's going to have his own series with Secret Invasion coming out in the next couple years. So I think it's unlikely. It's not totally out of the realm of what could happen, but I personally wouldn't bet money on it.
Yeah, I think the same thing because, like we already alluded to, like Far From Home is 8 months after Endgame, and he's been in space that whole
True.
time. In my thoughts on it, I think he's been in space that entire time. But I would like to see him show up like in like a season 2 or something, because I feel like he needs to interact with Sword in some capacity, because he's already a part of Sword right now, where he's on that ship. So I want to see him at the like Earth branch of Sword.
Right.
And just to see that all connected. And I want him to be the one to crack the fact that I think that Tyler's a Skrull, man. I see it like when I see him, I'm like, knowing that Secret Invasion is coming, that dude has to be a Skrull. Like all of the division heads all across the globe are replaced by Skrulls. And I feel like replacing the director of Sword, that's a no-brainer, man. It's right
Oh, yeah.
in our faces.
They're already like a cosmic-based division. The Skrulls are aliens. Like, it would be so easy to infiltrate.
And plus, not current director, he's the
The acting director.
yeah, the acting director. So not yet fully.
Right. Everyone under him's just like, that dude's a Skrull. We're not going to make him a full director.
Yeah, like we don't trust him. He never goes home. He don't sleep. There's something wrong with him.
I also love the fact that there are different factions of Skrulls, because we know in
Yeah.
the comics, in most runs, all Skrulls are bad guys, all Kree are bad guys, except for like Marvel, right? I love that there's different factions of Skrulls, because what we know, because of the Kree, the Skrulls have been scattered across the galaxy, so it would make sense that there are factions that are evil, that want to harm the Kree, that want to harm other
Right.
people.
Like radicals.
Exactly. You know what I mean? So it's just like I like that that's something that they're diving into, and it's not so black and white that they're just evil beings.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It makes them way more interesting. And that was an excellent turn in Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
You know?
And I love Ben Mendelsohn as Talos. Like he's awesome because he's always typecast as the villain.
Right.
See him just to like be laid back and just like crack jokes the entire movie was hilarious. But did you guys have any other final thoughts on WandaVision episode 4 before we move on to main topic number 2?
No, I think we covered it pretty thoroughly. Does the chat have anything else to say?
Yeah, chat, do you guys have any other questions on WandaVision episode 4? Let us know before we move on to our most anticipated comic book movies and TV shows of 2021.
I don't know. Last thoughts. I'm just overall, I'm loving WandaVision. This drought of 2020 really took us from no comic book movies, TV, or nothing, and having this hit so good and just get better each episode, story continuity. It gives you theories, more questions than answers. I'm just very happy with the enjoyment I'm getting from WandaVision itself, and I just can't wait to see what 2021 has as a whole and what else could it bring for us.
Yeah.
Me too, man. It was a long wait.
Yeah, Pedro, I'm with you. Just give me episode 5 right now. I just need to know what's going to happen. I personally think we're going to jump back into that reality and just pick up with Wanda again.
Yeah.
We might get a little bit of what's going on with Sword, but man, just give me episode 5. I can't wait to see what these last like 5 episodes?
We've had
5
4
episodes
so
left.
far, so 5 episodes left.
Yeah,
And
I
then
just
Rat-
can't wait to see where that goes, how it ends. And yeah, Falcon and Winter Soldier. Can't wait for that next.